You never know where the club is going. It feels like there's a lot of internal problems at Spurs.
Just some of the standards that maybe have dropped around the training ground, which need to improve.
Listen, I agree with him because I was part of setting new standards and a new culture within this place.
Ivan Toney has been suspended from all football and football-related activity with immediate effect for 8 months.
He is their talisman. It's not just the goals. It's everything that comes with it, the hold-up play. He's strong, he gives them an outlet, he's worked incredibly hard, he's a leader.
I think the European dream is difficult. I'm an optimist and always believe that everything is possible.
Here's Mbeumo on his right foot, it's there! Brentford have a second!
And so to discuss that fantastic game, Spurs versus Brentford. We're joined by Chris Cowlin, he's been on before from the Spurs Chat. Great podcast, available from all good podcast providers. And by the way, his opposite number from Brentford is Mark Chapman from the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters, Bias for short, which displays, I suppose, a worthy predilection for the Mighty Bees. Brentford, let's start with you, if we may, Chris. We know that, Spurs have had, should we say, an up and down season. You're still in with a pretty good shout of Europe. You want to keep those European dreams alive. It's been a tough season for your mob, though, hasn't it?
It's been a dreadful season, actually. To go from playing regular Champions League football to now trying to scrape a Europa League spot or a Europa Conference League spot, we know that
there's nothing wrong with the Europa Conference. I won't have any words said against it as a West Ham fan.
I know. If only Spurs took it seriously and tried to put the cup in the trophy cabinet. That's what it's all about. We need a trophy at Tottenham, but it has been a dreadful season. All round, and to finish in a Europa League spot would probably be the best that we can hope for right now.
And it's going to be not exactly a struggle, but you've got Brentford, who are a tough opposition, as I know as a West Ham fan. I think you've beaten us every time we've met, pretty much. Your next game, your final game of the season is Leeds. With no disrespect, you've got to be expecting. I know they'll be hungry. They may be up by then. You've got to be expecting 3 points from that. So really, a lot rests on tomorrow's game. This is not for Spurs.
Well, Brentford have got an outside chance of a European spot. Leeds are fighting for survival. This is going to be two very difficult games, but we have got to appoint a director of football. We've got to appoint a new manager. So some of these players are playing for their futures.
Yeah.
They need to give absolutely everything, and I'm glad the game is at home because we have given better performances at home rather than away. Because when you look at our away record, Newcastle, Liverpool, Villa, the last 3 games have been absolutely disgraceful in our performances and results. So we've got to give everything on Saturday.
Fair play to you. Let's go now to Mark Chapman from the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters, which is Bias, of course. Now, may I thank you on behalf of all other London football fans for making sure that Chelsea are now the worst team in London, which is good news. Of course, the last time you won away, you beat Chelsea. Fair play to you. But you've also got the prospect of tomorrow having the FA having finally ruled on that one, or the Premier League, no Ivan Toney. Now, that's got to be, at the very least, a slight handicap.
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, we've had 3 games without him this season, and we've taken 7 points out of 9. So it's not maybe as much as disastrous as people think. But yeah, I mean, it's been the verdict's been a long time coming, and to be honest, I don't think the punishment was unexpected as well. So I'm pretty sure the director of football and the executive there have been planning quite a while for this.
Now, we spoke about this at length on the show yesterday. I mentioned it before. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of this case. I know the number of transgressions he's admitted to. He made no attempt to kind of weasel away from it. And I was saying on the show yesterday, I don't know what the feeling is amongst Brentford fans, or if you heard anything about this, but if somebody, for example, was, I don't know, taking substances they weren't meant to, drinking too much, they would get help. Now, I'm not saying in any way, shape or form that Ivan Toney's got any kind of compulsive addiction problem with gambling, but that surely might be a question. I wonder whether he's going to get any, something about gambling that makes it seem that it's not something that maybe he'll get support for, which he might need going forward.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that football's attitude towards gambling is a very confused one, especially when it comes to authorities, where they will punish players. And Ivan has done wrong. He knows he's done wrong. Yeah. Footballers know they can't bet on games, any game.
Which is why I wonder whether there's something else going on there. Because if you know that, and you'd really, with all respect to, Ivan Toney's bank balance, he can't need the money, can he?
Well, you think so. You think so, and it's it's a lot of offences over several years.
And again, I'm not commenting from any inside knowledge. I'm just intrigued by the fact that it's still regarded as something that's not spoken about as a possible problem where people need help, but as a kind of issue that can be dealt with. Bang, and he might be coming back in whenever it is January and playing on with. Hopefully, he'll get at least somebody to talk to about it. Or we hope. So let me go back to Chris Cowlin from the Spurs Chat podcast. Chris, okay, so no Hugo Lloris, Sessegnon doubtful, Bentancur's out, I think Dyer doubtful, and Tanganga too. So who's running out for you? Daniel Levy?
I'll tell you what, as I said, the players are playing for their futures, and Harry Kane looks very frustrated at the moment, and his future is pretty bleak, whether he'll stay another year or not and leave on. I've
heard he's very keen to go to Brentford or West Ham, is what I've heard.
I doubt that. I doubt that very much. But no, it's as I say, Paul, it's been a very frustrating season, and so much needs to change at the football club. You know, we need to release players in the summer. We need to sort the Kane situation out. Of course, we need to get a director of football in. We need to get a new head coach in. We need to bring players in the summer who are going to take the club forward again. And the club need to learn from their mistakes. And we need to do things differently to what we've done in recent years. Because let's face it, ever since Pochettino was sacked in 2019, the club have gone round in circles. You know, we've brought in 2 win-now managers.
Yeah.
We're back with Ryan Mason. And this next appointment for us is absolutely vital. But you know, these 2 remaining games in the Premier League, I think that I will speak for a lot of Spurs fans. We cannot wait for this season to be over. But if we did finish in a Europa League spot, I think it would be successful, bearing in mind the very long, drawn-out season it's been. Conte, Stellini, Ryan Mason, all of the problems, the injuries, so many issues.
And can we cue the world's smallest violin? I'm meant to feel sorry for a Spurs fan here. Come on. No, I take your point, though, absolutely. I mean, it has been a challenge, to put it mildly. Let's go back to Mark Chapman now from Bias, the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters. Mark, I mean, you know, Brentford have been a remarkable success story. They're a fantastic team to watch. The stadium is brilliant as well, of course. For you next season, though, now, I suppose aspirations, what being a football fan is all about. What will be a successful season for you next season? Given your track record now, it's got to be, you know, you've got to be guaranteed, at the very least, you've got to be gunning for Europa place. I mean, is top 4 too much to aim for next season?
I think with a little bit of luck our side, and football sometimes can give you that. We could have been in the top 4 this season. I just think more of the same, to be honest, Paul. You know, it's been great. We've only lost 9 games this season. We've got the second lowest wage bill in the whole of the Premier League. So Thomas has done an absolutely fantastic job. But I think, you know, we've got issues coming up. Obviously, Ivan's going to be out until next January. It looks like David Reyes, the goalkeeper, is going to be leaving in the summer. So I think it actually might be another recycle of in terms of the squad. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of happens, because that's 2 big personalities, 2 big players. Could be a change in the style to accommodate new people coming in. Very interesting times, really. But we've taken points off all of the top 6 this season, and I just think more of the same, really. You know, we're in dreamland at the moment.
And is it possible for you to quantify, Mark, how you think the World Cup break, the summer break, winter break, whatever, how that affected, if it did indeed, Brentford? Because I mean, we've spoken to lots of people like this. I can't get my head round. I mean, for some teams, a momentum stopped. For others, they could regroup and almost kick off again. How was it for Brentford? Do you think that delay?
I think it helped us, because I think we had a few injuries in the camp. So those 6 weeks gave us a chance to sort of regroup a little bit. We had our last game before the World Cup was us winning at Man City, which is the last time they've lost in the Premier League. So I think that we came out of that on a high.
And then now, your final game, I think they returned to your stadium, don't they, for the final game of the season?
Yes, they do, yeah. So,
good luck with that. Good luck.
Well, I hope they've wrapped up the title by then, so it might, you never know, Pep might be at centre-half of that game.
And they might feel their H squad or something, given the amount of players they've got to call upon. But you have had a fantastic season, and I think, Spurs, I mean, I've got a real soft spot for Spurs. And it's not pity, Chris. Chris Cowlin's with us from the Spurs Chat podcast. My dad's still with me, thankfully. He's 83 years old, but he's a huge Spurs fan. And he, a bit like West Ham, I think in some ways, we're regarded almost as teams that are, and I know you've done far better than us, your history is far better, but it's almost like we're a slightly more exaggerated version of Spurs as almost a maverick outside London club. But by the same token, to keep that going, you've also got to deliver every now and again. What will be a successful season for you next season? I mean, sure, it's got to be more than top 4. You must be hungering, craving a trophy.
It's got to be a trophy, Paul. It's been 15 long years. The last trophy was the Carabao Cup in 2008. It's been so long. Today marks the anniversary of us winning the FA Cup in 91. That was 32 years ago. It was the last time we won the FA Cup. It's been too long. We've got to take the domestic cups more seriously in the future. And don't be so snobby. If we did get a Europa League spot or Europa Conference League spot, take it seriously, get the trophy in the cabinet.
And also, I mean, I've said to both of you, I'll start with you, Chris, if I may, that 10 years ago today, So Alex Ferguson left Man United. Now, we know he got a fair bit of time, a few seasons to sort things out there. Those days, I think, unless you're an Arsenal fan or an Arsenal manager, seem to be pretty much, over. They might return. But the thing that occurs to me is that maybe we need to get somebody to lobby on behalf of things like the FA Cup. I think, for example, were the FA Cup to guarantee a Champions League place, it would be an awfully different prospect, would it not? So it's something I know teams are hungry for it, but even in the early stages, that would mean there'd be something to go for with it. That might rule out some of the lower league clubs from making it through. But I think it's that kind of thing we need to actually move football on. I think it seems to me the League Cup's fantastic. I enjoy it as a competition, but it's almost like, unless you're Pep Guardiola, or in this case Eric Ten Hag, it's almost like a little bit of a bit of spinach. The fillet steak is the FA Cup, but really the Premier League and the Champions League, which I don't think is the way football should be in this country.
I completely agree. The main focus of any manager coming into Tottenham seems to be from high above that you've got to finish in the top four.
Ka-ching, that is, though, isn't it? Ka-ching, guarantee more money revenue, which is understandable. But, at the same token, if the FA Cup was given you a guaranteed route into the Champions League, that would change immediately.
Well, we have had so many good players, good managers at our football club, they've ended up leaving without winning a trophy. What really worries me is that Harry Kane could end up leaving Spurs this summer or next summer without winning a trophy. And I'll tell you what, that would be terrible to happen.
I mean, it would almost be one of those. He would always be there. I mean, he's a remarkable player. He'll always be huge in football history. He would be even bigger because of that, if that was a dreadful omission in his career. But, by the same token, you can't deny his talent. Let me ask a similar question to you then, Mark. Mark Chapman from the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters. Football's all about change. I mean, people think, the League Cup's got a great history. It was only from 1960. Things have changed. There was that famous season when Fergie actually got unfairly pilloried for that. Man United opted out of the FA Cup, but he's partly lent on by the Football Association. I do wonder whether we ought to find some way of honouring the domestic results more than actually always seeming to look towards Europe. And I'm not making a political point. I just think it seems to be a weird weighted against. Apart from the teams that are always going to make it in there, we know it's always going to be permanently 4 from 6. Probably with the best way, Brentford and West Ham aren't going to qualify in the near future for the Champions League. So I wonder whether we need to try and do something more to weight the game back domestically.
Well, I'd love to see it, but it's all about money. I remember, 10 years ago when we were in League One, we got Chelsea in the Cup at home in the 4th round. There was a massive buzz around that all. Yeah. But the owner made the point at the end of the season that we dropped 5 points around about the time between the first game and the replay. And ever since then, for the last 10 years, we have played understrength sides in the League Cup and the FA Cup. And we were doing that in League One. It's I don't think there's any way of clawing it back from that, which is a real shame because I just want to see my team win the FA Cup for the first time. I can die happy. I've seen this in the Premier League.
Let me ask you this, Mark. We've spoken before. I can tell from the timbre of your voice is broken. A, how old are you? B, how long have you supported Brentford? And C, what kept you going and got you involved in Brentford in the first place?
So I'm 48, but my first game was at...
You're not much older. You must have had a hell of a tough paper round.
Yeah, well, you should see my face. My first game was at Wembley. We lost against Wigan in the Freight Rover Trophy final, so I'm used to us.
Oh, the Freight Rover Trophy final. I know. Glory days.
Exactly. Well, I saw us lose at Wembley 4 times, so to actually get it in the playoffs, 5th time lucky was fantastic.
Brilliant.
But I just, I'm just old school about it. I remember then, even the League Cup, we had a game against Sheffield Wednesday when they were in the old First Division. They delayed the game 15 minutes to let the crowd in. I mean, you'd never get that now. You'd never get that now.
So it's that kind of feeling. And again, I think the feeling's been carried over from Brentford, even though they've got the new stadium. Chris, it's a different question for you really as a Spurs fan. You've been very frank and honest about your feelings about this season and your aspirations for next season. As overall, looking at Spurs, are you somebody who maybe in your heart of hearts, maybe secretly, maybe not so secretly, are hoping for some hugely wealthy gazillionaire to come in and buy the club? Because that seems to be the way, for good or bad, that seems to be the way football's going.
I just don't think that the club will be up for sale anyway. I think it would be very, very difficult to get done. The naming rights deal hasn't been done as yet. No. There seems to be so much going on at the football club. But what we want to see as fans is that we've got this great training ground, we've got this great stadium, and now we want to focus on the pitch, and that is where the fans' frustration is at the moment. Of a number of fans calling out board members, particularly Daniel Levy, because the focus now must be on the pitch. But regarding your question about owners, I just don't see that the owners, Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis. I don't see them selling the club in the near future.
Okay, let's get predictions from you now, guys, for the game tomorrow. 12:30. We've had the trailer for it. It's going to be a big game. It's at Spurs, of course. It's Spurs versus Brentford, and it starts kick-off at 12:30. You're allowed two, if you like, folks. You might remember. One from your head and one from your heart. Let's start with you, Mark. You're the visitors, so you first. What do you think tomorrow's scoreline is going to be when the final whistle blows?
My head says 1-1, and my heart says 2-0 to us.
Okie dokie. Right, okay, so he's going with that one then. So 1-1, a point or 3 points for Brentford. What do you reckon, Chris Cowlin, rather? Sorry, from the Spurs chat.
My head says 1-1, and my heart says 2-1 Spurs, Harry Kane brace.
It's going to be a great game, whatever happens, I think. Guys, you've been fantastic this season. Thanks for all your help and support. Continued good luck and success to you personally. Both your teams, I wish, can sign to the National League as soon as possible. I'm joking, of course. Chris Cowlin there for the Spurs Chat. Great podcast. Download it from any good podcast providers. Also, Mark Chapman. If you want to get involved, he's a member of the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters. And you had our three-way conversation right here on talkSPORT and Talk Radio. Well, my friends, we're live till 5.
Hear the biggest sports stories first.